Today, we're jumping into the history of the United States. But listen, we're not going to just run through a boring list of dates and events. Nope. We're going to look at it as a story about people, about conflict, and about constant, massive transformation. And this quote right here, it just nails the theme for us. Think of it like a giant, complex tapestry. To really get the American story, you've got to look at all the different threads that are woven into it. The good, the bad, and all the huge changes that made the nation what it is today. So our story kicks off with a truly pivotal moment, a collision of worlds. This is where ancient societies on this massive continent first meet new arrivals from across the ocean. And, well, that encounter would change the course of history forever. What's just so incredible when you look at this timeline is the sheer scale of it all. I mean, for thousands and thousands of years, this land was home to this incredible diversity of indigenous peoples. Then, boom, in what is really just a blink of an eye in historical terms, this intense period of European exploration and settlement begins. Now, this meeting of worlds wasn't just some simple, friendly exchange. Our source material makes it clear that it was a total demographic and cultural earthquake. New diseases just wiped out huge portions of the native populations, and the fight over land and resources kicked off conflicts that would last for centuries. So you have to ask, what was the driving force behind this huge wave of people crossing the Atlantic? Well, it was a real mix of powerful motivations. For some, it was all about the money, the search for gold and other resources. For others, it was about getting their own piece of land or escaping religious persecution back home. And behind it all, you had this fierce rivalry between European powers like Spain, France, and England, all scrambling to claim a piece of this new world. Okay, so this brings us to the next massive shift. How did all these separate colonies with totally different people and economies start to think of themselves as one thing? How in the world did they become a nation? You can really see the escalation here, step by step. It wasn't just one thing that happened overnight. It was this slow burn, a transformation from loyal subjects who were just protesting to organized resistance, and then finally to full-blown revolutionaries willing to fight a war for their independence. And here's the crucial thing to remember. This revolution wasn't just about taxes. It was a fight that was fueled by these powerful new ideas floating around at the time. Ideas about individual liberty and natural rights. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a list of complaints. It was this radical, bold statement about the right of people to govern themselves. So, after a long and really tough war, they did it. Victory was won, and they had critical help from allies like France. But once the fighting stopped, the challenge just shifted. You see, winning independence was one thing, but now came the really hard part, building an entire country from scratch. But here's the thing. This new nation was born with a massive, unresolved problem baked right into its foundation. And that problem, the institution of slavery, would eventually lead to the country's most violent, most painful test ever, the Civil War. This chart just lays out the divide so clearly, doesn't it? The United States was basically two different countries sharing a border. You had the North, with an industrializing economy built on free labor. And then you had the South, an agrarian society where the entire economy and way of life depended on the labor of enslaved people. These two systems were just pulling the nation in opposite directions. And the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860, who was against the expansion of slavery, was the final straw. Now, his main goal was to keep the Union together, but the war that exploded in 1861 would end up doing so much more. It would force the country to finally confront its own founding principles. This right here was a massive turning point. With the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln completely reframed what the war was about. It wasn't just about politics and preserving the Union anymore. It was now a moral fight for human freedom. It set the stage for getting rid of slavery for good. So the war ends, slavery is abolished, and the country is won again. But as our source points out, the end of the war was nowhere near the end of the story. The long, difficult, and painful struggle for a truly equal society, well, that was just getting started. Okay, let's fast forward now into the 20th century. This was a period of just explosive change, not just for the US, but for the entire planet. And America was often right at the center of the storm. Man, the 20th century was an absolute whirlwind. You had two world wars that didn't just involve the US. They launched it onto the world stage as a global superpower. Then the Great Depression completely changed the role of government. Then a decades-long Cold War with the Soviet Union shaped foreign policy for generations. And all the while, you have these powerful movements at home, like the Civil Rights Movement, pushing and demanding that the nation finally live up to the ideals it was founded on. And this is just a clear reminder that this process of transformation never ever stops. New challenges, like the attacks of September 11th, are always emerging, forcing the nation to adapt and to redefine itself, both at home and in the world. This final quote, I think, brings us right up to today, and it sums everything up perfectly. It's this powerful idea that history isn't some old, dusty book on a shelf. It's a living, breathing thing, an unfinished project. So, the big takeaway here is that this story of change is still being written. It belongs just as much to us right now as it does to the past. And that leaves us with one last big question. How will the people of today continue to shape and transform this nation for tomorrow?